Hello, welcome back, everybody. All right, let's get this party started. So, let's get that out of the way. So, this week we are working on Ahimsa. So, I invite you to find a comfortable seated position. And we're going to start with a meditation, the metta meditation. So, find your comfortable seat. Your eyes can be closed, or if you prefer, have the eyes open. Maybe allow the eyes to rest on one spot, maybe on the floor. And take a few moments just to notice. Notice whatever sensations you have here. Perhaps noticing temperature inside or outside of your body. Perhaps noticing any body sensations. Notice the breath, the pace of the breath, the location of the breath. Notice if your breath is flowing evenly through both nostrils, or if one nostril is predominant. Notice your state of mind and your emotional state. You don't have to change anything. Just observe. And when you're ready, imagine loving kindness cultivating inside your body. Perhaps you cultivate this as a feeling in your heart, or perhaps it's a golden light that emanates through your body, or perhaps you're using the logical mind to come up with adjectives that describe to you what loving kindness is. It doesn't have to look any particular way. Just allow it to grow. And now imagine directing that loving kindness towards yourself. Perhaps you envision yourself wrapped in a blanket of loving kindness. Perhaps in your mind you imagine someone being loving or kind to you. There's no right or wrong. Just imagine loving kindness being directed towards you, from you, from others, from the divine, whatever you would like. Now imagine directing that loving kindness towards someone you love. friend, a family member, a pet. And again, this can look however you would like it to look. And now imagine directing that loving kindness to a stranger. Perhaps you're at the grocery store and you notice somebody, maybe they're having a difficult time. That seems like they could use some extra loving kindness. Again, it doesn't have to look any particular way. Just direct your loving kindness towards a stranger. Now shift to directing your loving kindness towards someone that you are having difficulty with. This could be a coworker that you're not getting along with, or even a family member, a friend. Again, it doesn't have to look any particular way. Just direct your loving kindness towards somebody that you are having trouble with. Now shift your loving kindness focus to the entire world. Imagine that you could send loving kindness to every person on earth, to every animal, every tree, every plant, every grain of sand. Send your loving kindness to the entire world. And now let this exercise go. And again, notice how you feel. Did doing this meditation change anything when you first sat down to now? Check in with your breath, your thoughts, your emotions, physical sensations. And then when you're ready, you slowly lift the gaze or open the eyes. So today we are working on Ahimsa, nonviolence and compassion. So the in Ahimsa, it negates the word, and Himsa means violence or harming. So Ahimsa is nonviolence, and the other part of nonviolence is compassion. So let's go to slide number 2, maybe. There we go. So this is the meditation that we just did, metta meditation, a meditation for compassion. The order is not necessarily important. Sometimes it's easier to start with a stranger. Sometimes it's easier to start with a loved one. Do whatever feels right for you. But we worked on sending loving kindness to the self, a loved one, a stranger, someone you're having trouble with, and the whole world. So you may have noticed after doing that simple little meditation, how you feel about yourself, maybe how you feel about others changed. And that was just a very short meditation. You can do each one for a minute, 2 minutes, however long it feels right to you. If you're having trouble finding compassion for yourself, maybe spend more time on the self one. Or if you're struggling with another person, maybe spend a little more time there. So Ahimsa is the foundation of all the yamas and also the foundation of the entire 8 limbs. Everything builds on, or you could say, is in service to Ahimsa. So for example, yama number 2 is satya, or truth. To practice truth, we are practicing truth so that we don't harm self or others. And this one is a little tricky, which we'll talk about next time, because sometimes the truth hurts. But if you are using truth in service to or building from a foundation of ahimsa or non-harming, then it's the right thing to do. So in yoga and in the Yoga Sutras, things are generally organized from outer to inner because it's easier that way. It's easier to understand, it's easier to practice. So the yamas are considered an outer practice because they relate to how we interact with the world. The yamas are ordered first because they are arguably the most important because they deal with maintaining a functional society, getting along with each other, not having chaos and crime rule the world. In Sutra 231, it describes the yamas as a great vow or a promise, unlimited by time, circumstance, and place. As are many things in yoga, actually, unlimited by time, circumstance, and place, which is why you can take these ancient texts and bring them into the modern world and it still makes sense, or at least the themes still make sense. So I invite you to take a moment to really contemplate what that means and why this is important. What does this mean for individuals? And what does this mean for the society as a whole? And what could this mean for individuals and society as a whole? To have this promise to each other. Unlimited by time, unlimited by circumstance, unlimited by place. If we think about this set of ethics, unlimited by circumstance, that means no matter what your circumstance is, you are promising, you're taking a sacred vow to go about life in an ethical way. And what is so fun about this is that that is going to mean something different for everyone. So it makes it fun, it makes it confusing, and probably quite frustrating at times. So every society places some kind of value and understands to some degree this need for social order. So we can think about things like the Ten Commandments, or just having a set of laws that we go by. When we discuss and think about ahimsa, we should really consider self and others. We want to have nonviolence and compassion to oneself and also to each other. So let's move on. Okay. So as we tap into our true self, which is what we do when we meditate, this leads to a quiet, calm state of mind, which is a natural place of compassion. So when we think about ahimsa, we're really talking about three ways in which we can practice compassion or harming. Manasika are thoughts, vachaka are words, and kayaka are actions or our deeds. So this becomes quite interesting because everybody is going to interpret this differently or take it to different degrees. So we can think about some people choose to be vegetarians because they feel that harming animals is not okay. Some people consider meat eating to be the natural order. And if you do it in a respectful way, then it's okay. And then you have the Jains, for example, who they wear masks, they sweep the ground before they walk so as to not harm even things they cannot see by accident. We can also think of ahimsa as just striving to reduce harm. We can think of ahimsa as trying to be compassionate and to learn from the experience. So if you or someone else does something wrong, can we use this as a way to learn? As we work through ahimsa, it's really essential to have a few qualities: non-judgment, forgiveness, and understanding. Viveka, or keen discernment, or sometimes interpreted as wisdom, is crucial to understanding. So we talk here a little bit about pratipaksha bhavana, or understanding the other side of the story. So this is just taking somebody else's perspective into mind. You may not agree with it, you may not like it, but you might. You also might find that you are starting to have compassion for somebody else's version of the story. So what's really fun as we start to get into the nitty-gritty of what ahimsa means, what compassion means, what does harming mean? What does that mean in terms of our thoughts, our words, and our deeds? It is undeniable that energy is a thing. Some people will say that it's sort of a hippy-dippy idea, or maybe they don't like the vocabulary being used, but I just don't think anyone can really deny that how we feel inside can be felt by others, even if we think that we are masking it. So for example, there's a story about dogs. So clearly we've all been around dogs. If we approach a dog and we are very scared, even if we act like we're not scared, if they can sense that we are feeling afraid, then the dog will be afraid and they might growl or they might act in a way that maybe they wouldn't if they thought that you were not afraid. So it is said that in ashrams, the animals walk around unafraid because there is an entire sense of nonviolent energy in an ashram. And you can practice this as well if you, some of these practices are interesting but may not be super ethical. For example, you could get a group of people together in a room and think really negative thoughts, maybe even talk badly about somebody, and then let that person enter the room and just see how they feel. Um, you know, maybe not the most ethical way to practice this, but I think we've probably all even been there, where that kind of thing happens and people can just sense it. They walk in and they just know. So, that could also be a really observant person looking at very tiny little cues of body movements or facial expressions or things like that. But it could also be that they sense what you are thinking and feeling. So, how does ahimsa relate to asana? So, we're going to look at just a few things of the many things that will affect our poses. So, this is certainly not an exhaustive list. Um, but it's really great as we're moving through our physical practice to ask ourselves some questions, to continue just asking, what is going on in my body? What am I feeling? What am I sensing? Um, Bernie Clark likes to use this phrase, what's stopping me? And I think that that can be very, very helpful. And I like to take it a little further by asking myself also, what's helping me? I also like to generally assess from the core outward. Um, and I have a few reasons for doing it this way, and we're going to talk more about that later. So for now, the point of going through this part right now is to give you an opportunity to just start asking questions and start noticing before we flood you with a whole bunch of information. Um, I would love for you to move through your practice in the coming week or two and just play, be open, um, be a non judgmental observer, a compassionate observer of yourself, your thoughts, your physical body, and what you notice. So we have a couple words here, prakriti and vikriti. Prakriti is, to really sum this up very quickly, it's our original constitution. It's who we are in a lot of ways, mental, physical, etc. And our vikriti is sort of the imbalances of the current moment. Um, and that can mean a lot of different things as well, but it can be mental, physical, etc. So that's all you really need to know about that right now. But our original body structure plays a role in how our physical postures feel to us. Any imbalances that we have going on, that is going to affect us as well. We can have tension in the form of muscle tension or connective tissue tension. We can have compression. So for example, like when you're in child's pose or something, your thighs are coming up to your chest. And maybe I can't get my thighs any closer to my chest because of compression. That can be tissue to tissue. My thigh, like the muscles of my thighs, are hitting the tissues of my belly. It could be bone. So maybe my hip is structured in a way that that's what's stopping me to get further. So things like that. Bone structure. So we talked a little bit about bone structure. But this can also be how much your femurs want to rotate in the sockets. This can be the shape of your pelvis. This can be tibial torsion. Lots and lots going on with the bone structure of the body. Stress, your nervous system can have a huge effect on what happens with your poses. So these are some things that I just invite you to kind of play with over the next week or two. We will continue to look at all this in depth later, but just right now, use this as just sort of a time to play and explore and to observe with ahimsa, with compassion. So, enough said on that. We'll move on. Okay. So you may be noticing a theme at this point. So each of our, I'm trying to move this out of the way so you can see. So each of our videos, we're going to play with establishing a home practice. So we can use this to create a sadhana or a daily spiritual practice. And that can mean different things to different people. For our context, a spiritual practice, all it means for us in this place and time is that we are connecting the mind, the body, and the soul in whatever way fits your needs. So this can be asana, physical practice. It can be breath. It can be meditation. It can be chanting. It can be a lot of different things. But the idea is we're doing it with intention of awakening our true selves. It's with the purpose of nourishing the deeper self, the spirit, however you want to word that. So we're going to use some tools, some psychology of change tools to get us there. So we have this really great metaphor, the rider and the elephant. I'm going to move myself here so that you can see. All right, so we have the rider. This is our logical, reasoning mind. And we have the elephant, which is our will and our desire. So the best way to describe this, I think, is by example. So the rider is the person who, as they're making their schedule and they're planning their life, they're like, cool, I'm gonna do yoga at 6 a.m. every day because that's what makes sense. And I can just do it right before breakfast. This is gonna be super efficient. This is gonna be great. I'm gonna be healthy. I'm gonna start my day off right. I love it. This is a great idea. The elephant, though, takes over at 6 o'clock in the morning and says, oh my gosh, I am tired. I didn't really sleep last night and I really need to press snooze. And I'm not going to get out of bed because I just don't want to. And I have all these reasons why I shouldn't have to. So the key to making changes is getting the rider and the elephant to work together. So I ran a yoga studio for 6 years, 7 years. I've been teaching for 15 something years. I can't tell you how many times people asked for a 6 a.m. yoga class. And it was consistent. Every year, people would ask for it. And for many years, I was silly enough to actually offer it. And how many people did I get? It sort of depended on where I was living. So when I was in a bigger city, I maybe had 4 or 5 people who showed up at 6 a.m. In smaller town, I had like 1 person who would come. And it wasn't even a consistent people. It was just 1 random person every once in a while. And then we had our classes that were very, very popular. So the writer wants to think that these things are going to work, but the elephant won't let them. So we have to, 1, be realistic about what's actually going to happen. And then we also have to be compassionate with ourselves when our great plan maybe doesn't work out the way we thought it would. So we are going to practice ahimsa as we start to really try to hone in on our sadhana, our practice. So there's a few things we're going to do. 1, we're going to direct the rider. then we're going to motivate the elephant, and then we're going to shape the path. So today we're just focusing on directing the rider. So this is a great time to journal, pause the video and answer these questions. But basically the idea, our first step, is that we're going to follow the bright spots. So find things that are going well for you. These are your strengths. Do you schedule well? Are you efficient with your time? Do you naturally have a lot of energy? We are going to find all of the bright, beautiful, wonderful things that are going on in your life, and we're going to draw and build on that. There's an exercise that there's an exercise I really like to do, but that's not totally true. There's an exercise that I think is really helpful to do. I personally find it sometimes hard to do this one, but I do think it's really helpful. So at the top of a page, just write, I am a badass because, and then list all the great things about you. This one, for a lot of us, I think is going to be very difficult. This is one of those things that you can ask other people for help on. Ask other people what they think your strengths are. That can be even more helpful than just doing it by yourself. Great. So take a moment if you want, pause the video, work on that, or come back to this later. So, there we go. Still figuring out technology. All right. So we have some potential for some more journal prompts, and we also have some potential for community discussion. So this can be something that you play around with on your own, just journaling or contemplating in meditation. This can also be something that you talk about with your friends or family, or you can get on the Facebook group and start a discussion about some of these things there and see where it goes. So everything that we do in yoga, and particularly what I really prefer in my own teaching and my own practice, is to not just focus on the theology, the theory of all of this stuff, but putting it into action. This is where it really, really matters. Because we can all say these beautiful, wonderful things, but if we're not doing it, if we're not really contemplating it, if we're not imbibing it, it doesn't really mean anything. And that's not to say we have to be perfect at every point in time, but we're just trying to be a little bit better. We are actually trying to take this into our lives versus, just talking about it or thinking about it. Then we actually put it into practice somehow in some way. So what is ahimsa? What is nonviolence? What is compassion? And what can it mean in your life? How can you practice and experience it daily? How does it apply to your yoga and meditation practices? Sitting. This one, I see this a lot. People don't sit high enough, and so they sit in meditation and they damage their bodies, or they're just at least in some pain or discomfort that they don't need to be. Folding forward is another big one in our asana practice. People don't fold forward properly. And this can happen for lots of different reasons, but those are some examples of people practicing ahimsa. Those are examples of people practicing himsa, harming of themselves. But on the flip side, when we sit high enough, when we take that time to put blankets underneath us and sit high enough, when we take the time to learn and figure out how we need to fold, even if it looks different than what other people are doing in the class, then we are practicing ahimsa. So in your journal, take some time to answer some of these questions or think about it as you're practicing. This one I think is a good one. Do you practice ahimsa? Do you accept that you are the expert of your own body and will therefore do what's best for you? And here's another fun one to have as a discussion with others. Do you consider yourself an ethical person? Why or why not? Um, Feedback. I think feedback is amazing. Um, I think the problem that happens with feedback is that one, we don't know how to receive it, we don't know how to give it. Um, so, is your feedback constructive? Is it compassionate? Is it clear? If so, hooray. um, and you can play with this, giving feedback to me or giving feedback to your fellow students or your family or friends, and this can be feedback in the form of, hey, I noticed when you're doing forward fold that this happens. This brings up some interesting conversations about, do you give feedback if it's not asked for? So you can discuss that as well. What are the pros and the cons of giving feedback when it has not been asked for? Um, is it even going to be received if it has not been asked for? There's no right or wrong to these questions. So I just invite you to have fun, to play with it, to discuss. Um, this is what learning is. This is what takes it to the next level, is maybe disagreeing with each other, or maybe questioning your own ideas, questioning what's been presented here or anywhere else in this program. Um, Questioning is what brings all of this alive. It makes it a living, breathing practice rather than just this dull, here's what this is, here's what this is. We want to question, we want to observe, we want to grab a hold of this information and run with it and play with it and create with it and do all these amazing things with it. So thank you so much for being here today and watching this video. I look forward to seeing you next time. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Punaktu Sahaviryam Karvavai Tejasvinavadhi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you for being here.